Well, hello there YouTube. Today I'm going in with another tutorial. This time I'm going to crack how I made the animation that you see here. So, as you may have noticed, I already have the scene set up. This is not a lighting tutorial, this is not a modeling tutorial. This is an animation tutorial. Also, if you want to know what keys I'm using, there is this arrow right here, which will show you what keys I use. So, without further ado, let's get started. First thing I'm going to do is that I'm going to start with the scene where it starts with a dark lighting and then it rotates around, which is really simple to do. So first of all, I'll start with the camera positioning and make sure I have this turned on so I can keyframe the movement. So what I'm going to do, press G0 and enter so it automatically keyframes this. Next, I'm going to go to the camera settings and just crank up that focal length and keyframe it. So the reason I'm using the focal length is because of the depth of field. The reason I do this is because when I zoom out, it doesn't blur. Instead, if I use the camera and just grab it away, it blurs. So after that, I'm going to go a little bit further into the animation and just keyframe this. Make sure it's keyframe and drag this down. So as you can see, we have the subtle movement. We can also duplicate this. After we've duplicated and drag it here, it's going to stay still for a moment and then it's going to move. Don't worry if it looks bad. We are going to fix this into the graph editor. It's going to look good. So after that, the scene, as you may have noticed, started dark. So I'm going to go into the light settings and give this a really low value, like 100 watts. I keyframe this. And then I'm going to go to the same frame that I have the camera set up on, find the lighting, keyframe that as well. Now we can type in the value that we want, and it's going to be keyframed automatically. So now we have it lighting in syncing with the motion of the camera. So after we got it moving with the camera, what I'm going to do is add in the rotating light, which is really simple. Put the cursor on top of the object. And then I'm going to add in a curve, circle curve. And then add in an area light. Go into the object constraint and then press follow path and select the curve that we have here. Of course, this may come with subtle deficiencies. And now we gotta move on with the curve to make sure it's aligned properly. And after that, we are going to choose a good starting point. Also, we can give it a higher number. I think this looks good. So we will go into the end of the circling motion, go into object constraints, and then move it here and press I so we keyframe it. Also here, keyframe this one. So I may have overdone it. And as we can see, everything is syncing up perfectly. So after that, I'm going to add in the movement where the bottles are splitting, which is really simple. Select the hierarchy of the bottle, duplicate it, press M to move it into a new collection. Now we'll call it bottle 2. Now that we have our bottle 2 here, go to keyframe 0, G0 and enter. So it's keyframe. And then we are going to go into this frame, for example. We are going to do the same because we need it to stay in place. And after that, it's going to be moving in here. So we're going to grab it, excluding the Z-axis. Now we can rotate this. Again, don't worry, we will fix the blend movement in the graph editor. So after that, I'm going to duplicate this again, so that we have the keyframes on, and move this into another collection called P3, and I will simply grab it on the x-axis and fix the rotation. So now what we can do is move the camera a little bit. Now what I'm going to do is go into the graph editor, select everything, and select everything here. Right click and choose the interpretation type to Bezier. Also, make sure that you have individual origins, individual centers, selected. And then press S2, which will make the animation go way smoother. Of course, you can add in some tweaks to it, but I think that looks good on itself. So if you want to render an animation, you simply go to the scene selection and choose the file that you want to render it on. I have this already rendered, so I don't need to. Make sure that you have named it properly, because if you, let's say if you have rendered two scenes out of the same blend file, the second scene will render on top of the first one, so you will waste it. Instead, make sure that you name every time you will render the scene. Also, you can choose between all these types of video formats. I think they all work the same. So that's our first scene. Now we will move on to the second one. So now I'm going to render out the second scene, which is actually divided into two scenes. I will explain why I did that later on. So to start it out, I'm going to rotate the camera on the local Z. And just like we did earlier, start out with adjusting the focal length. After that, I'm going to keyframe the position of the object, and then go into the end of the animation, move it on the Z axis. I want to stop right here. And also give it a 360-degree rotation on the Z. Also, another thing you may have noticed is that it's blurred out. So what I'm going to do is fix the depth of field. As you may have noticed, it's going blurred right here. So I will just keyframe the depth of field here. And then I'm going to change it again and keyframe that. So now there is no weird blurring. Also, we can fix the position of that. Maybe even fix the focal length. Also, another thing we can do is give it a keyframe for the focal length here. And then reduce it on this frame. So we have this kind of a zoom out effect. Again, we will go to the graph editor, select everything here, interpolation mode into Bezier, and then press S2 with individual centers selected here, and the animation should look pretty smooth. If you want to, you can even scale it even more, but I think this is overdone. I'll just go with 1.2, 1.5. I mean, you can experiment with the speed you want. We can now render this out, change the name, as we said, so it doesn't render on top of the other. And that's what I'm going to do is remove all of the keyframes before the last frame. Now delete this keyframe. What this will do is I'm going to start an entirely new animation, but without changing the frame. So I have this smooth transition. If you ask me why I did that, is because I need to turn off the depth of field for this one. You will see why. So what I'm going to do, keyframe the camera again. Probably we can now give it a rotation. I'm going to drag this in here. We can keyframe the focal length. Then I will zoom out. As you may have noticed, while rotating, the plane backdrop and all the lights are not moving with it. So to fix that problem, I'm going to go into the first frame, select the light and the plane backdrop, and then select the camera last. Make sure it's the last one selected and it's highlighted in orange. So press Ctrl P and give it a parent. What that will do is that everything will follow the rotation of the camera. Of course, this may need some small adjustment. We will delete this keyframe and we will work the animation again. So now we have this zoom out effect. And what I'm going to do is make the product face the camera. So now, as we can see, we have a smooth transition between the camera movement in the last scene and this scene, a seamless transition, which is what we want. So what I'm going to do now is I have this model of a mint and this model of an orange that I have downloaded from the internet, and I'm going to give them the animation where they come from behind the product. So what I'm going to do is grab them and hide them behind the product. Make sure that auto keying is on. We will make sure that the orange is not visible until we want it to be. And the same thing with the mint. After we've done that, we will go to the frame where the motion stops and we will make them appear. Another thing we might do is that we give them some time between when they pop out. So for example, I'm going to drag this in here, just 4 frames difference. And also, I'll take this down, go to the frame, this frame for example, and duplicate this and drag it here. What that will do is give us a much faster movement. And also we will do the same here. So what we can see, there is a delay between the time each one of them pops out. And the last effect I'm going to add is this shrinking after the popping effect. So I'm just going to go into this keyframe, select it, go 3 frames after it, just scale that down. Same thing with the mint. After we've done that, we can see there is a nice popping effect. Last thing we will do is that we will go into the graph editor. Again, select everything and everything, individual centers, and I am going to scale this on a 1.5 ratio, or maybe even 2. So as we can see, there is easing in and out of the shot, which is what we want in our animation. So that's gonna be it for the video. If you did like it, make sure you leave a like and subscribe. Also, I have an Instagram where I post all my finished works in. You can check that out. I'm more active there than YouTube. Other than that, have a good day and see you soon.